Hey guys, this is Gene Jensen, and what I want to talk to you today about is punching. It's a great technique to get into this matted vegetation, the matted grass. This is hydrilla. You know, there's a lot of other things that mat up, but it is a great technique to get in there and find those freaking monsters that hide up underneath this stuff when it mats out. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about. Hopefully I can catch a fish in this video, but I've been wanting to catch do this video for so long that it's just time for me to put one out there. So first thing is what equipment do I use to punch? I mean, look at the crap you got to pull the fish out of. So you need a heavy, long, heavy action rod. You're doing flipping and pitching. And so what I've got here is I've got a 13 fishing Omen Black, 7'11" heavy action rod. It is a broom handle, absolutely, but it's light as a feather. And I've got it paired up with a 8:1 gear ratio 13 fishing Concept A. 65-pound braid and a heavy tungsten weight. It's about an ounce and I think this one's 1.25 ounces. And then a heavy flipping hook. Let me show you. A Mustad grip pin heavy flipping hook. It's a 4/0. And a Biospon Viocraw. And I'm using black and blue. The water's clear, but underneath this grass, it's low light conditions, so it's really dark. So I'm going to use a dark colored bait. All right, so let me give you the reason why I'm using such heavy stuff. You know, people say, oh, isn't 65-pound braid overkill? Well, it is for a 2-pound bass out in open water, but if you catch a 2-pound bass in this stuff, you're going to bring 30 pounds of grass in with it. Or if you catch an 8-pound bass, you're going to bring 30, 40 pounds of grass in with it. So the reason you're beefing it up is so that once you get bit, you can turn that fish, no matter how big it is, turn that fish and get it out of that grass. Another reason why you use braid is hydrilla. So for instance, this happened to me last year on Chickamauga. You know, I flipped in, I let it sink to the bottom, I went to pick up, and I didn't feel anything. And I was like, man. And so I went to set the hook, and the fish had already grabbed, it was a 6.5-pound bass, already picked up the bait and swam out of the hydrilla. And I had 4 feet of hydrilla I had to rip through before the hook landed home. So I went and I jerked, and that braid cut right through that hydrilla with no problem and got to that fish and got the hook set in him. So that is why you use braid. That is why you use heavy braid. This is a full contact sport when it comes to flipping or punching matted grass, and you need the biggest equipment that you can get. Now, weight selection. The weight selection, you want to use the lightest weight you can get away with. So depending on how thick the cover is or how thick the mats are, is how you're going to choose your weight. This is, like I said, it's about 1.25 ounces, and I play around with it. You know, sometimes it'll land on top of a real thick spot and not go down, and I have to shake it to get it to fall down, and it'll eventually fall down under the mat. And then, but that's perfect for me. I don't mind sitting it on top and then shaking it a little bit and letting it fall down. Some people want to punch through it the first time, and sometimes the bass want that too, and you just have to kind of play around with that weight. Great way to just lay the hammer down on some big fish, and it can be totally addicting. So I'm gonna fish around a little bit. I'm gonna stop and show you how to rig this up. It's a specific way to tie a knot and everything else, and hopefully I can catch a fish in these mats. I don't have a whole lot of confidence in it because I just haven't been able to do it this year, especially on this lake. So, okay, one way to present this bait, you know, if you don't have a heavy enough weight, one way you can try to present this bait is, I don't know what they call it. I call it skyrocketing or whatever else. But if you got a real thick mat and you don't have a heavy enough weight, throw that bait straight up in the air. Whoop. And then let it come straight down and bust through that thick stuff. In the wintertime, when this hydrilla breaks off the bottom and gets matted up into the backs of pockets and creeks, it gets so thick, I have to do that. And so that's how I get it up underneath those mats. And I'll get 1.5 ounces weight, throw it up there, let it punch through, and just, I've caught some great fish, because in the wintertime, that dead stuff that's floating in the back is warmer than anything else, especially when the sun's on it. All right, so the technique to fish it, now think about what you're doing. You're flipping in through a canopy and getting down, and it's real clear and open underneath it. So the technique is to flip in. Let me get the bait in and I'll show you. Flip in, let it sink in, let it sit on the bottom. I'll shake it a little bit on the bottom, then I'll bring it all the way back up to the canopy, let it fall back down, all the way back, let it fall back down, and shake it. And then just before I rip it back through the canopy, I'll bring it up and I'll shake it at the top. Because a lot of times, especially on a sunny day, the bass will have their backs up against the canopy. So you bring it back up to them, and this matted hydrilla on some lakes can be 6 feet deep. You're throwing it in, and it just keeps sinking. It goes all the way down 6 feet. Now the reason for the long rod is because you're flipping and pitching, and you get better, longer cast with a lot less effort if you're using a long rod. Reason for the high-speed reel, 8-1-1, is that it's a numbers game. The more casts, the more fish you're going to catch, the more area you're going to be able to cover. And I want to be able to get that lure back to me after a cast faster, and it equals more casts. That's the reason for a high-speed reel. Plus, a lot of times the bass will grab it, run out with it like that one did on Chickamauga on me, and then you got issues. You got to be able to catch up to them and catch up to them quick. All right, now the ideal situation, or the ideal type of grass or cup area that I like to fish, is I like to find this matted hydrilla that's close to deep water. So it comes all the way up to the surface, real close to a deep water. So you have a definitive drop off. It mats and then boom, it drops right off after the matted grass. And if you don't have that, you still will find fish in it. But I find it better to fish a definite grass line. And the type of grass lines I look for is I don't want a straight grass line. I don't want one that goes perfectly straight or has a straight line all the way through it. I want one like this that has little points and pockets, and it's just elongated. It's irregular, and it's got an irregular run to it. And the reason for that is those bass will position himself on those points or back in the back of those pockets, and that's where they're going to sit and ambush the prey, or ambush the bait fish as they swim around those points. So those are always more productive. You have to cover a lot of grass sometimes to find bass. But once you get bit, you slow down and you fish that area good, because that bass isn't alone. There's going to be bass in that general area where you catch that fish. That's almost a guarantee. So cover water, cover water, cover water, cover water until you get bit, and then say, okay, the bass are right here. And then that's when you fish for them, and you fish hard for them. So, boy, I hate when braid does that. Wraps around your guides. All right. Okay, another thing to consider is the types of hook sets. There are two different types of hook sets that I use. And one of them is a lot better than the other one. Your hookup percentage goes up a lot more. But the first one I use, you feel the bite, and it's your typical jig hook set. And that's one I'm so used to. You feel the bite, and you just hammer it home over top of your head. And that works just fine most of the time, but your hookup percentage is going to go way up if you try this. You throw it in, you fish it, you feel the bite, you pull up on the bait. So you're basically gonna it's kind of a reel set, but not really. You pull up until you feel flex in the rod, and then you pull back even more, okay? So you pull up, feel the flex, the rod starts to flex, and then pull back. Don't jerk it, don't pop it. And a lot of times what happens is when you set the hook like a jig and pop it straight up really quick, go to a slack line and crack it, that big old weight will blow the fish's mouth open. And I don't care how much that hook toggles or turns, it's, a lot of times you're going to miss fish. It's just going to blow the fish's mouth open so hard, especially when you're using a really big, heavy weight. So that's the reason for the, you feel you're fishing it, your rod's at about 10 o'clock, and then you just pull back until it starts to bend, and then pull back hard even more. So it's, and you're just muscling him, So good thing to consider, especially if you find yourself missing a lot of fish with a cracking hook set, so per se. Now there are some pretty cool things you can look for or listen for, and things you can observe as you're fishing this matted grass that will key you in on the bait fish being there. And if the bait fish are there, the largemouth are there, the bass are there. So the things that you can key in on is you listen for bluegill popping. So bluegill will come up to the surface on these mats, and they'll be eating grass shrimp and bugs and all kinds of stuff off the top of that grass. And you'll hear a pop, 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 pop. Sounds like little caps going off sometimes. And if they're big bluegill, I've heard them sound like a 22. I mean, but you listen for the pops as you're working the grass. And if you hear that, you slow down a little bit. See if you can't catch some bass in there. You know, the edge of the grass is key. You know, I'm gonna start off on the very outside edge of the grass. I'm gonna flip to the outside edge a few times, and I'm gonna flip a foot back, and then flip another foot back, and then maybe flip into the thickest stuff I can find. And once you figure that out, once you get bit a couple of times at whatever distance inside that edge, you know the bass are gonna pretty much all be right there, so you can narrow down where you're flipping and where you're pitching. Just one of those things. But the biggest thing is listen. You listen for the popping the bluegill. You observe. You look for bait fish that are scurrying around inside of the grass. And another thing is you come along and you'll start to see what we call potholes, and it's places where the bass have come up to hit something that was on the surface, and you'll see, basically just see the hole. On Chickamauga, it gets so much pressure. I'll go by and look, and I'll see places where somebody caught a fish yesterday. You'll see where it just basically the tracks stay on there. You can see the pothole, and then you can see the trail that the guy drugged the bass through the grass with. So that's when I'm throwing frog anyway. But anyway, so you throw it up in there. It's a good place to pitch, a good place to fish a frog. All right, let's talk about the casting technique. Okay, we'll start off with flipping. Flipping is a short distance, accurate cast that is designed to not make a whole lot of splash and be able to cover a lot of water. The best time to flip is when the water's muddy or you've got thick vegetation that hides your boat and hides your movement, because the water right here, I mean, I could probably see 16 feet deep if I looked careful enough. So it's not muddy, super, super clear, especially this hydrilla cleans up the water real good. But so a flip is basically you get you some line out just like this. Okay, and I want my bait when I have my arm fully extended, I want my bait to be just below or at the level of my reel. Okay, and all it is you're going to flip it in. You flip it in, shake it a little bit. So you pull it out, thumb out. I've got it hooked with my thumb. Okay. And the way to prevent a splash is you don't let go of the line until the line's fully straight or the bait's in the water. So, and this is all it is. You're going just like this. But it's a limited distance. You got short distance. So I'm gonna flip in and I'm gonna let it go. And you can cast a lot faster. Boy, you can cover a lot of water doing this. You just can't cover a lot of distance on your cast. The second one is a pitch. And a pitch, you bring your bait to the level of your reel, okay? And then you drop your rod like this. Ooh, that was a bad one. Drop your rod like this and let it go in. And it's another really soft presentation. Like I said, I've got a really good video that explains all of it, but that's it. You can do it. I switch hands a lot. I do both. I'll switch hands, or you'll see me, you'll see me when I don't have to do a whole lot of distance. I'll do it with my left hand. So I'm kind of do it with both hands. But that's pitching. And those are the two casting techniques that you use when you do this. And yes, you can cast if you got to cast a long distance. But it's a whole lot better. You get a nice soft presentation. You surprise the fish that's underneath the grass, and it just works. It just flat out works. So, all right. Well, let's talk about rigging this thing. You take your braid. Of course, like I said, it's heavy braid, and you get what's called a punch stop. It's kind of a bobber stopper on steroids. It's just a really big bobber stopper. I like these. These are by the Vike Fishing Company. I'm not sponsored by them. They're very inexpensive. I got them on Tackle Warehouse. and they will slide inside the weight. Let me show you the one on my other punch deal, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. They slide inside the weight, so the majority of them are inside the weight, so it reduces the amount of rubber that's outside of the sinker, but it still holds it really tight, holds it tight up against that bait. So that's why I use that type. And the Vike ones are the least expensive of that type. You know, other ones are like the Punch Stop by, heck, I can't remember the name of the tag company, it really doesn't matter. So, and it comes on a little star thing, a little thing like this with all these little wires hanging off, and there's one peg, and these are one use only, one peg per little piece of wire, and the wire's got a loop in it, and you stick your line through that wire, double your line up like this, okay? Double your line, oops, I tried to pull it out. Double your line up, grab the punch stop, and pull it off of the wire and onto the line, and it's on your line just like that. That's how you use it. Then you take and you slide it up a couple, 2, 3, 4 feet to get it out of the way, and you take your heavy tungsten sinker. I'm not picky about the type of tungsten, I just want the size, and I want this kind of this shape. So I think this one was a Academy Sports store brand. It's got an insert in it, and I like the ones with the inserts, but I also use Strike King ones. I use all kinds of different kinds, whatever I can find on sale or whatever I find at the store that day. It's hard to find the 1.5 ounce ones. You almost have to order them sometimes. But all right, so you stick it in there. That insert may stop my punch stop from going in there. But anyway, I'm not going to worry about it. Stick your sinker on there just like that. And then you grab your hook. And now I like to use smaller baits, so I usually use a 3/0 hook. But it's a heavy wire. Notice how thick that wire is, heavy gauge wire. It's got a little keeper on it right there, and I'm going to show you how to tie this up. All right, now the knot that you use is a snell knot. The key to a snell knot is you've got to put the line in. See, I didn't put enough slack in that thing it's pulling on. You got to put the line in this way, not this way. And if you put it in this way, you'll miss every single fish. So the line first goes in, down into the eye of the hook. Pull a little bit of slack, or pull the tag end out. Make a loop, or make a loop and hold it right there, just like that, with your finger. Then take the tag end and wrap it around the eye of the hook 4 times. Being careful not to overlap your twists or your wraps. Then, and it's hard to show you, you find a space in that loop that you made to stick that line back up in through. Okay? Then I pinch it all off. I've got everything pinched. Pull the tag end till it's tight. Pull the main line till it's tight. Make sure you didn't wrap around your barb or your keeper, and then pull your line tight, and that's it. It's a lot easier than I made it look, but you know, a couple, 2 or 3 practices, you'll get it fine, and that is not coming out. 3 wraps would work just fine. It's not coming out. Get your nippers, scissors, whatever, cut your tag, and it's ready to go. Now let me show you why you snell it. Why you use a snell. We get the bobber stopper down here, or the bobber stopper, punch stop. Okay. Now, when you set the hook on that fish, if you have it tied wrong, that hook's going to go right out like it's going to pop out just like this. With this snell knot, you know, and if you tie like a regular Palomar knot or anything else, you're not going to get the hook to do this when you set the hook. When you set the hook, that hook will pop out just like that. Okay. So you're sitting there fishing it, you go to set the hook, and the hook goes bloop, just like that, and you catch the inside of the mouth of that fish. That's why you use a snell knot. Okay? Now, there is a specific way to put the hook in your bait. Now I'm going to rig this one up with a green pumpkin vial crawl. Oh, no, that's a black and blue. I know I got green pumpkin right here. There it is. Okay. Pull the green pumpkin vile craw out. There's a specific way to rig your soft plastics with these type of hooks. You go in at an angle. You can go down into the tip and then turn your lure or turn your hook out and come out at an angle. Pull the hook all the way through. Okay? Turn it over. Stick that eye of the hook, or the eye back up in the hole. And then you go and you lay your hook alongside and you see where it's going to go in. And I'm going to look about right there, bend my bait up, and then I just pull. I don't want that hook to come through the soft plastic. I just want it to sit just like that. Pull your punch stop down to your sinker, and like I said, with that insert, I don't think this one's going to slide down inside of it, but it doesn't make any difference. And it sits just like that. All right, and with the vile craw, you pull the appendages apart, and that's how you rig it. And like I said, when you set the hook, bloop, that hook just pops right up, and you get a good hook set. So that's it. That's a punch rig. That's how you rig it. Now let's talk about. Let me get some baits out. I'm going to talk about the different types of plastics that you can use with this rig. Now the kind of plastics that you can use for punching is basically endless, but I'm going to kind of try to give you an idea of what I look for when I'm looking for a punching bait or when I'm trying to dig through my boat and find a punching bait. If the grass isn't super thick, if it's not totally matted up, you can use a bait that's got appendages on it. Now, this one's got a lot of appendages. If it starts to thicken up a little bit, I might pull some of the appendages off. Now this one's nice because the appendages will slide out of the way, will get out of the way a lot of times. But if you've got something like a brush hog that has that little curl off of it, or something like that, I tend to break those things off and make it as slick as I can. That's why I love the vile craw. This is another one I use. The vile craw is ideal for punching most grass until it gets super thick, because you've got that cylindrical, and it's almost like an arrowhead shape. Punches through the grass, everything gets out of the way, there's no appendages off to the side, and it slides right through the grass. And then once it gets in the grass, these little, I call them wings, it'll actually help and give it a little bit more action. And a lot of times if you're, mainly when you're using lighter weights, but once you punch through the grass, it'll glide away, or it'll drop in a spiral. It doesn't always drop straight down. It'll drop in a spiral. So a lot of action, a lot of kick in the claws. That's what I'm looking for with a grass bait. Now if it gets super thick, I will use something like, let me pop the little tag off of this. I go to a Biospawn Exo Stick, because it's real cylindrical. It pops in. Now this is a reaction style deal, but I like the Exo Stick because when it falls, this little tail is spinning like this when it falls down. It doesn't fall just like a Senko straight down. It'll fall, and you'll get more action out of this tail because of the way it's shaped. And it goes right, it slides with the cone, with the nose of that, the cone head like that, it slides right up behind the sinker and goes right through the grass. A great way to doing it. Another one of my favorites is this one, and I cannot remember the name, and I forgot my phone, and I would have looked it up. It's by Rage Tail. Came out a couple of years ago. It's got the body of a stick bait, but it's got a little kicking, flattering tail, flipping tail. I like that one. This one too, in that thick grass, it'll punch right through it, no problem. And then if they want a smaller presentation, a little Rage Menace with a little bit of kick, and something really small, I'll either that or I'll bite the head off the vile craw and put a smaller hook on it. But that's a good one, and this one's really good when you're just working the bake and flipping cover. But if they want a smaller presentation, I'll go to a Rage Menace. So, but that kind of gives you an idea. It's all about the shape of the head. You don't want one that has a flat, and I don't have any, do I? See how wide and fat the head of this bait is right here. And I'll take it off the hook, kind of show you. I don't want something like that unless I'm fishing a really heavy sinker, and that'll follow the sinker. It's got a real heavy head or something that's got a flat head. I don't like to use that because it'll get hung up in that grass. So that's typically what I kind of steer away from. And it's, you know, after that, the options are endless. Just take your pick. And like I said, it's a reaction bait. It falls down in front of their face, it comes back up. I do like some kicking action with it. I do like to have some fluttering because that helps with the reaction. But you know, is what it is. It's great. So test around, play around with it, try to find some stuff. You know, find what you like and go with it. One thing I forgot to mention is this rig. I've started to use this rig for just about everything I do with a Texas rig. I mean, this is my Texas rig. I'll just use a lighter weight. I'll go to a 1/4 ounce, 3/8 ounce, you know, 1/16 ounce, whatever. So if I'm just working the bait, flipping or pitching to cover, you know, bushes or whatever, I'll use this same exact rig, but just downsize the sinker. And you know, maybe use fluorocarbon line or lighter line or whatever. This isn't just a punch rig. This can take this rig, this way of rigging can take the place of your Texas rigs. And yeah, it's just great. And like I said, just from 2 ounces all the way down to an 1/8 of an ounce or 1/16 of an ounce, use the lightest weight that you can get away with. If I'm flipping bushes, I'm gonna use, you know, I'll use a 1/4 ounce, I'll use a 3/8 ounce. You know, anything I can get away with, but I'm gonna go down to the light stuff and just flip those bushes. And because you're not punching, you're just flipping in there and you're trying to get it in. And it is, you know, you lose a lot less fish, and you lose a lot less bait. So love it as a Texas rig. Well, like I always say, be sure to introduce somebody to fishing. Let me help you teach them how to fish. Just show them my videos. You know, get them out there on the water, show them how to fish, man. It is so much fun. If you've never subscribed to my channel, be sure you subscribe to my channel. Check out my other channel. Like this video if you do. You know, hit that little thumbs up button to like this video. More importantly, get out of the water, go out and catch some fish, and have fun. Take care. Have a great day.